Good day, Merry Christmas. Welcome back to Once Driven Forever Smitten. For reasons that will soon become apparent, we went and bought the cheapest running MoT'd Vauxhall we could within 50 miles for 350 quid, which is that Vectra 1.8 LS sitting behind me. I'll explain that just shortly. It's nice and festive, nice covered in the snow, but it's also, and within no exaggeration, about minus 15 Celsius. So yeah, we're going to have a look at what you need to consider when you're trying to buy a car at the very bottom of the price range and have it run straight away for you. So here we go. So the model I've chosen is a Vectra C 1.8 LS. The reason I chose it was the best petrol option within 50 miles on Gumtree, Facebook Marketplace, eBay, etc, etc. Could easily have been a Mark IV or a Mark V Astra. When you're buying a budget car, you need to take into account simplicity, so I would say avoid a diesel because there's more to go wrong with them. These 1.8 petrol Vectras use a timing belt. I think a lot of Vauxhall petrol engines around the same era use timing chains, which can be problematic if the correct oil hasn't been used. Here's a tractor coming flying towards me. But these are good. These are nice and simple. The 1.8 LS was the base model when the car was launched in 2002, and although it's the base model, you get a CD player, you get cruise control, which isn't actually working on the, oh, it is working. The cruise control is working. It wasn't working the other day. Hey! It's got air conditioning as well, and although it probably won't be working on this, the aircon is one of the cheapest and easiest ones to fix of any car because the condenser goes in the front and the access is really good on it. I mean, I would have quite happily gone for a Mark IV Astra 1600 petrol, possibly a Corsa C, although I'm not as big a fan of them. But I think this is quite a lot of car for the money. A Vectra B would have been alright, but they're getting that rare now. We're sitting minus 2.5 degrees outside, and the thing's driving. It drives as well as anything I've got, just knocking about here at the moment, so really pleased with that. Hopefully the lady that's in need of a cheap car at short notice, this will do her okay for a few months. Now, one of the most essential things you're going to want to know about before you even set off is there paperwork for the car? Is the V5 present? Because if it isn't, just walk away. I can't be bothered with cars where lost the V5 or it's in the post. You have to question why. I've got the V5 here because I gave the dealer certificate to John. Number of former keepers 4, declared new at first registration, non-transferable registration mark. So it's not down as a Cat C or a D or anything like that. The good thing with this as well is we've got a full set of manuals with the car, which means we've got the radio code, which is handy if you ever need to go and set that up again, because for some reason Vauxhall thought people might steal those. And we've got the full set of owner's manuals with it as well, and it's got 2 keys, which is quite unusual. You don't get too many cars at this price for that. So remember, V5 essential, documents nice to have if you can get them. Okay, so first off I was going to start it and run through various things, but I happen to already know that the car needs a thermostat, which I have in that box there. And with it being so frosty and cold, I'm going to have to fit that first before I do anything else, because otherwise the thing's not going to defrost properly. So doing things slightly back to front. First up then, thermostat. I try to remember what car I left my toolbox sitting in. I've been leaving crap lying everywhere. The Vectra CDX is on loan to the person who will be getting that Vectra sitting in my drive. Yeah, right, okay, we have tools that are in the Omega. I'll just move that round there. So, easier to access. A cold start. This thing's been sitting for a few days. This doesn't like cold starts, it can be a little bit, needs a rev to get going. Might conk out. Thinking about it. And we're going to pick up. See, for sale this soon, look at the mileage. 23,739. You need this car in your life. Look, interesting tip, because it's a GLS in the bottom of the range, they covered the walnut trim with grey plastic to make it look cheaper. I've scraped that off because it was coming off anyway, and the walnut trim, they paid extra to make it cheaper. And this is why Vauxhall is now owned by Peugeot. See, minus 10. See, minus 10. I have to scrape the windows. Right, so this is the Z18 XE, I think it's the name of it. 125 horsepower, base level standard engine for the early Vectra C. You could also get a 1600 in these, but not in the UK, thankfully. The thermostat's hidden down the front here, so we'll have to take this Ecotech cover off first to access it. Now these are a couple of T30 Torx. We'll take an oil filler cap with us as well, which appears to be in 2 bits. Okay, that's interesting. What's happened here? The oil cap. Ah, 2-parter. Okay. Okay. Right, thermostat is connected in here with one. How many bolts is it? This is a new thermostat. Just 2 bolts, and then we've got a feed pipe and a sensor as well. We should probably drain the coolant out it before messing about with it, but we'll just let it, not worry about it, we'll just spill it and top it up. You can see for a start it's needing a head rocker gasket, but that's nothing too much to worry about. Let's check the oil. It's got hardly any oil in it. Better top that up. What do you expect for 350 quid? Right. Of course, one of the first things you're going to want to do, ideally, is check if there's any oil in it, which we've established there isn't really in this. It's right on the bottom mark. The chap did say it was due its service, so we'll just fire some more on it. Because now I've got a little bit left from this bottle of fully synthetic, which is what I think these things take. They're not in timing chains, so they're maybe not as fussy as the later ones. Oop, a little bit more. I've got a fresh one of these sitting here. And the name of progress, and this has got these lovely spring clips on them, which can be a right pain to get onto, especially when they get old and rusty like this, and positioned on the hose in a difficult position where you can't quite get the pliers onto them. Right, so plan B, I couldn't get this rusted clip off, so I'm just taking the 2 bolts out, it short one on the bottom, long one at the top, and we're just going to ease the whole thermostat off the housing. It's absolutely covered in oil. Now I've got a wiring plug on there, which should come off pretty easy. Yep. And then we've got, what means that I can get round onto this clip a lot easier to remove the pipe. Quality fuel cap, I need to remember to go and get one of those. Yeah, so we've separated our filthy thermostat. Got this bloody horrible clip off as well, so just remains now make sure the surfaces are going to be clean and get the new one fitted on. I don't even got any Jubilee clips with me, so I'll put a stupid clip back on it. Oh well. Yeah. Where is it? Yeah, it's the same. Good stuff. This should improve things immediately. It's too oily, I can't handle it. So here's a tip. Always keep a can of brake cleaner in your house. And that goes for all you bored housewives that are probably watching, because it works wonders on oil, grease and all manner of household stains. And yeah, this thing's absolutely filthy, so I'm going to go out to clean off with some rags, because I just can't handle it. The new thermostat's about the same colour as the old one. I really should probably put a rocker gasket on that, but I'm not, because this is like super budget end stuff, this. How do you even sit normally? That'll do. That's good stuff, this. I'll just get all the oil and mess out the way around here. I think somebody's already had a go with the gasket by the look of it. There's quite a lot of orange sealant around there. So there's no point, you've got to buy a new gasket if it starts leaking. You'll only get a limited result trying to silicone up one that's already gone. So I'll not worry about that now. I hate this particular kind of engine oil. Right, so now we've got a nice clean surface for our stat to mount to. We've got a little gasket that sits in place. How do you go around? I'll go in one way. You shouldn't need extra silicone sealant on this. If the surface is nice and clean, this should be all you need to seal this up. Although having said that, if you did take an old one off and the gasket fell apart, you could probably just about get away with making a gasket. It's been done before. What one will we go for first? Try get the bottom one in first. There we go, anyway, that's that on. And we'll get our oil pipe on there. Somebody's kindly already put a Jubilee clip on. Coolant temp pickup. It's good you get a sensor, a new sensor with them. That's that on, and Mr. Hose. So next up, you want to check what the coolant is like when it's cold. Obviously I've just done the thermostat, so we're going to have to top it up. We didn't lose that much out it. But you want to check, A, is an antifreeze in it, and B, if there's any sort of sparkly metallic particles in it, which means it's had steel seal or similar head gasket treatment put on it at some point. So I'm just going to give this a top up just now because we've had the stat out it. That's just pure antifreeze. I'm putting that in now, mate. We'll just finish off the bottle and then I'll top it off with water. Right, so we've turned up at our very cheap car, and the first things you want to check, ideally, is it cold? Because you want to be checking it from cold. We'll check the oil. It has got oil in it now, after I've added a couple of litres. You want to check the coolant. You want to check that it's the correct colour, that it doesn't have any sparkly sort of metallic bits in it, because that would indicate that it's had steel seal put in it to replace the head attempt to repair the head gasket. Also, if it's rusty and mucky, it means that it's probably been run without antifreeze in it, which won't be doing it any good either. As far as other checks under the engine bay go, make sure everything's held in place as it should do, and then you're good to go and fire it up. that's no problem, that's alright, a little bit of... A little bit of hunting for revs there, but that's okay. Oh, you've cut out. Running for a while, and I can just see a tiny drip of water that's coming from this pipe here, which has been replaced at some point. So I probably need to trim that and try and get a better Jubilee clip on it further down, but I would have to do it when the thermostat is off to get that on there, so the thermostat's probably going to have to come off it, but it's such a minor leak I won't worry about it for now. We'll just carry on with the rest of it. I've got it sitting, ticking over and just heating up without the heaters on at the moment. I'll stick the heaters on in a second. Just checking the... Yep, that thermostat's holding that back at the moment, so that's good. Radiator pipes are still cold. That buzzing in the background, I'm pumping up one of the tyres, it's a bit soft. Now, all 4 tyres are down below 20 psi because it's been sitting for a bit. So it's a good idea to start pumping them up and getting them all to 30, and that'll make a difference. Right, so once I've done the thermostat, I had to give it a few revs for a bit, hold it at like 3000 RPM for it to bleed through. We've got a nice hot pipe there, nice hot pipe the other side of the radiator, and both the heater matrix pipes are nice and hot. The coolant tank's that discoloured that you can hardly see the level, but close up it seems to be sitting all right. So now we can actually go around and explain all the checks of what you want to do when you're buying a 350 quid car that you're hoping to run on the road straight away. Okay, so in a cheap car you've got to make certain allowances here, but you need to know what you're looking for. ABS light, management light, that's gone out as it should do. Management light's down in the corner there. We've got a battery light, oil pressure light. Management light's gone out, so that's good, and obviously I've been sitting, warmed the car up now, so it's come up to temperature quite nicely. So inside you want to be checking as many things as possible quickly. Do the washers and wipers work? The washers may not work on this because it's so cold today, but you need to check all that. Do the heater controls work? Do they move? Does it change from the screen? You know, you're checking everything. Does the horn work in the car? You need to check your electric windows. Do they go down and up? Do the back windows go down and up? Do the seat belts all hook in? Does the boot open? Don't know what that means exactly. Does the radio work? But there's a lot of things to check quite quickly, because you can, if the radio doesn't work, then it's just kind of like tough, but if it doesn't blow air up on the windscreen and you can't defrost the windows, that could potentially be a problem. Do your lights work? We'll go out and check them now, because not being funny, there's certain cars that it's not that easy to change the bulbs on. Those are all frosted up. Have to go and get them cleaned off. But yep, we've got lights in the front anyway. Right to the back. We've got lights at the back. Did the boot open there? The boot does open. A bit dirty in here, you got to hoover out. But you just want to be having a little look around here as well, make sure the boot's not soaking wet. There shouldn't be any holes in it or anything like that. It's got a space saver spare in it, which has never been in the car apparently. But this is the sort of thing you're going to find, you know, mucky boots and stuff like that. There's a towing hook for it. It's in here. Stuff for the tow bar, because this used to tow a caravan. So aye, just check as many things as you can quickly that could cost you money. Lights, wipers, and of course tyres. You can't expect much from tyres. Right, some more checks for the outside. Now, what you're doing is basically a really rapid pre-MoT check, because you don't want to be having to spend any money on this car for a little while. So tyres, we can't expect a lot. This one is borderline, it's on the markers, it's still legal. We can check in there, see. Brakes don't feel too bad. Shock absorber looks okay. I don't think it's got a broken spring on it. I've got a set of headlights, they're a little bit misted over. We could probably get the white diamond on them, polish them up a bit. It was mentioned on the MoT that the lights were in need of a bit of attention. Checking this tyre here, it's the same again, just a simple check. This one's got a lot more life on it, that's a good tyre, that's handy. Same again, looks alright under here, looks pretty dry. You can see the brake disc just through the wheel, it looks not too bad. We're MOT'd until August, so we should be okay. Back tyre again, there's not a lot, there's only so much you can check. This one's a bit, that's about on the level anyway, so you'd have to factor into replacing the tyres on this, but that's no big deal. We can't see the shocks from the back, I can see a brake pipe from there. It's probably asking a bit much to go and jack somebody's 350 quid car up at the side of the road and start checking for play in the wheels, you know. When I went to look at this car, it was rather cold and dark. There was an old age pensioner selling it, so that's probably taking it a bit far. But the next most important bit is the test drive, which you might not get a very long one on, but you have to identify a lot in a short period of time. Now, when you're checking over the interior, it really depends what you want to use the car for. This one's pretty clean and hasn't been smoked in, which is a bonus. But I mean, you ideally don't want a car that absolutely stinks of dog, you know. Unless you're going to put dogs in it, then it wouldn't matter. But it's got a little split in the seat here, but it's all intact, you know, the seat's firm and comfortable and adjusts everything properly. I'm seriously losing the light here, so it's probably the last clip that I do for this. But yeah, early Vectra C, really quite an underrated car and a great old banger, cheap car these days. So since I've changed the thermostat in it, I've left it ticking over for a good long time, which is what you would want to do anyway. It's holding its temperature nicely, we've got good heat coming out it, so time to take it for a test drive and see how it behaves. Right, so we've got the opportunity for a test drive of this quality 1.8 litre Vectra. Now, one of the most important things that you need to check is the clutch. And I was informed that the clutch had been done in the car in 2019 and spoke to the guy at the garage who had done it. There's an easy enough way to check the clutch, just see if it slips or not. An easy way is put it into fourth at about 30 miles an hour and floor it, and then see if it will slip. So you probably wouldn't have very long for a test drive, so you're checking for any knocks, bangs, clangs off the suspension, anything that feels untoward, any grinding noises. Are the brakes metal to metal? Does it stop in a straight line? Is the steering wheel vaguely straight? There is obviously, there's a tiny wee knock off the back suspension on this, which is, I don't know, you've got to expect something. It's just anything that's going to be really bad. Is there any noisy fuel bearings on the car? Is it misfiring? Anything like that? Does it drive straight? Which this does. And then we're going to fourth gear at about 20 miles an hour and just floor it. And then you'll soon find out if your clutch is going to slip or not. But you're just giving it, not when the police is about, they'll think you're drink driving, but just giving it a bit of moving about. Some presses of the brakes, make sure that they're working properly, and just make sure that it revs cleanly. If you can get it up to speed, There were a lot of speed bumps where I was, which is quite handy for battering over them. These Vectra Cs are really comfortable cars. They were severely, am I right word? They were heavily, that's not even the right word, heavily facelifted in 2005, and this is one of the earlier models in a 2004. As you can see, it drives nicely. So our first check says, does it overheat? No, it didn't overheat, it was fine. We've got heaters coming through, no problem. So that's good. Head gasket is okay. Spoke to the man who did the timing belt in 2019. We don't have any paperwork for it, but at this level you've got to work on trust a bit. The chances are it was probably done as a cash job. So, not ideal for those tyres. But at £350 you've got to factor in that you're going to have to spend a couple of £100 on it a couple of months down the line. It's a matter of getting you through the next couple of months without spending anything on it immediately, which I reckon this car will manage. God, there is not much traction here. But it's really smooth, really quiet. It sits in the road exactly as it should do. I think you would agree with me in seeing why I chose the car. Somebody's put a bit of grit out here. That's not bad at all. Temperature gauge is showing -2 now. It's not a warm day at all. Heaters are good now. I couldn't have done this without putting the thermostat in it first. It was just hopeless. I wouldn't have been able to defrost the windows in it because the temperature gauge didn't come up at all unless it was sitting still for ages. So let's just pull in here. I'm just going to change the camera angle. So another thing that you want to check on the car is, does the handbrake pull up and down cleanly? If it's going up right to the ceiling, there's something wrong with it, and that could just be a cable, or it could be needing backplates and expensive to repair. The handbrake is spot on in this car, so that's another good thing. Does it go into all gears? You know, is fifth there? Does it make a noise in fifth? So it's spot on. We're sitting at just 90 degrees, perfectly there on the temperature gauge. It's nice and smooth. It is needing a service, but you've got to factor in that it'll run for a couple of months about the doors without that. I would say that the car's probably going to need, yeah, it would need 2 tyres on it at a minimum, and a good service, and then it would probably be alright for the rest of the year. It's MoT'd till August. You could just about throw it away after that, but I reckon there's a couple of years life left in it yet. Check if your rear heated window works as well. The key is check everything and check it quickly to find out that there's nothing catastrophic hiding in amongst there. Doors that don't open, overheating engines, bridged out fans, that sort of stuff. Well, I'd say the Vectra's passed its test drive fine. There's a wee bit of groaning from the strut tops at the front. There's a little knock for the back end, but it doesn't matter because we're MoT'd until August. And you've just got to expect a little bit of that. It brakes nicely, steers nicely, sits well on the road, smooth and quiet. it's behaving exactly as it should do, so it's going to be well worth the 350 quid I paid for it, I think. So when it goes out the door to the customer, I mean obviously I'll have to stick the price of the thermostat and the 20 quid of petrol I put in it. But that's it all. Good to go. Not bad. Right, see you next time. Oops, I put the back wiper on. It must have been stuck with the ice and it was promptly torn itself to bits. Oh, well, better go to the scrappies and get a replacement one. Oops.